Alright guys, thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the channel. So, I've had a lot of comments on the Ford Ranger swap, probably more so than any of the videos I've done so far. The Ranger just gets more attention, and it's kind of the same when I drive it. I can drive the Mustang or the Lightning and they get attention, but not even close to like the Ranger does. So, I'm not really surprised that I have more comments on it. So I guess we're going to just do a quick walkthrough today and walk around and kind of do a parts list again for the people that haven't seen the older videos or somebody that's maybe looking to do a swap. There's a few things to know, several ways to go about this. You can take everything out of a Ford Explorer. A lot of people do that. They swap everything over, including the computer and the cluster, and that's one way. A little bit of wiring involved, pretty time consuming. I did not want to do it that way. I wanted to do it as simple as possible. So the whole goal of this truck was to put a 302 in here that I could drive anywhere. If it broke down, I could fix it at pretty much any parts store. I didn't have to have any specialty parts, no specialty sensors, none of that. So when I decided to build this, the goal was to use easily or readily available parts that I could change on the side of the road with no fancy tools, just a basic toolkit, and keep on trucking. The plan for this truck ultimately is to hook up we have a 33-foot camper, but we also have a little pop-up, and I plan to take the pop-up and drive like to Gatlinburg. It's about a 4.5, 5 hour trip from here. I've been there last year for Ponies in the Smokies with the truck. It did phenomenal. It got like 18 miles to the gallon with 410 gears, running like 75, 80. Truck did great. It don't overheat, so I have no issue driving it pretty much anywhere with that little pop-up camper that weighs 1,000 pounds behind it. So that's kind of the goal for the truck, is to have a little hot rod that I can drive places. It sounds good, looks good, and it's still reliable. So the rundown of the truck is, it's a 2005. I pulled it out of a field in November 2020. It was trash, to say the least. It was a company truck for somebody. I couldn't really pin down who it was. The guy had bought it. It had a ladder rack on it at some point. The top of it was beat up. It was a standard bed, and I didn't really like the standard bed. I always wanted to build a flare side, so that's what I swapped it to. But the truck had sat in the field for a couple of years. They had left the windows down, the interior was shot, so I had to go through and redo the interior. There's a whole video, if you go back, it kind of shows like walk around and running and all that and burnouts. But this video is just kind of to tell you the parts and how to go about it. So the easiest way obviously is a carburetor. It's cheap, it's simple. I probably have in the whole motor swap, now we're not talking about the build, but the motor swap alone, I probably got $1,500 to $1,800 in the motor, the heads, the carburetor, the distributor, the knickknacks, everything. That's probably even include the transmission. The drive shaft fit right in. I didn't have to have that shortened or re-splined or any of that. So basic rundown, it's a 92 5.0 out of a Fox body. A buddy had it in a supercharged 92, and he also had nitrous on it at some point. The motor had made like 412 and 430 at the wheels with the stock heads, an F-cam, and an Explorer intake, and a Vortec V1. It was tuned by Lee Blankenship. So then he pulled it out, put a little hotter motor in it, and it sat in the corner for 4 or 5 years. And then when I was looking for a motor, he offered it to me for basically free. So big shout out to Craig Mays, amazing dude. He always is helping me out when I need parts. They're kind of a Mustang family also. So I used that bottom end. I did nothing to it other than put a new oil pump. Took it to Jamie Mattingly's shop up here in Bardstown. He builds all of my engines. He's done 3 or 4 for me now. He builds my family's engines. Just a great guy overall. Never had any issues with him. Very fast turnaround, like sometimes within weeks. So dropped this motor off. I told him I just wanted it to be reliable. We didn't re-ring it. We didn't do anything. Put a new oil pump on it. He had an a B303 cam. He put in that in there, and I bought a set of Skip White 190cc aluminum heads. They already came fully assembled for $700. They're aluminum. They're better than GT40s. They're nothing crazy. They're not trick flow heads, but they flow good enough for what I was looking for. I didn't want a race truck. I just wanted reliability and lightweight. So I put them on there. Like I said, $6.99 to the door through eBay. put those on there, bought a set of valve covers, an air gap, aluminum intake with a quick fuel 650 carb. That carb's out of the box is almost perfect. It's just a little bit of tuning to get it dead on. Then I run a billet HEI distributor off of eBay. I know I get a lot of hate for that because people hate HEIs on Fords, but like I said before, I wanted something super reliable. It's easy to fix on the side of the road, not modules and boxes and MSD and this and that. That is, if something goes bad on that, I can pull in pretty much any parts store and they'll have that Chevy part. So, billet HEI distributor is like $60 on eBay. Set of Ford Motorsport wires. Just a cheap air cleaner. Again, nothing crazy here. Very simple combo. This truck made, and I don't know the exact numbers. I took it to Lee Blankenship's. It made like 293 and 312 at the wheels with no tuning. I literally put it together and had set a dyno appointment and then just showed up and ran it. It runs considerably stronger than it did because I've done some tuning and just little things. Distributor had to change the timing around. It was pretty low on timing when I had it there. I've probably put another 4 or 5 degrees in it. It runs quite a bit better than it did there. I don't think it picked up a lot of horsepower, but it does run better. So basic setup is these are Explorer front accessories. Most people know that you just go to the junkyard, get your Explorer front accessories. All that boat straight on. Use the stock length Explorer belt, of course. Explorer water pump, Explorer alternator, all this stuff you can pick up at any parts store, super easy. That was a goal again. Explorer AC unit, it bolts right in and plugs right into the Ford Ranger AC lines. I have a aftermarket, 2 10-inch aftermarket fans. I don't know what they are, but they do fine. And then a stock replacement 5.0 Explorer radiator. It bolts right in, no issues there. This truck runs 160 degrees all the way up to about 95 degrees outside. If you have the AC on and it's above 95, it'll get to 185 to 190. The highest I think I've ever seen the truck is 200, and that was on like a 100-degree day with the AC running in traffic. It just doesn't get that hot. I will probably eventually put some better fans on it just because I'm not crazy about having these cheap aftermarket fans on here, but they do the job. So I've pulled trailers with it. I've pulled my jet skis down to the lake, all those things, no issues whatsoever dead of summer. I leave the AC running and still no overheating in drive-thrus or any of those kind of things. I blocked off the plate there where the factory ECU was. So this truck, basically the only thing that makes it run is this HEI distributor, has a hot wire running to it, and then it runs over to the fuse panel box. I've got it wired into the accessories. When you turn the key on, the HEI goes hot, and the same thing with the fuel pump. When you turn the key for it, the fuel pump kicks on, and it's got a $50 or $60 Edelbrock inline fuel pump that is self-regulating. So basically, I don't have to have a regulator on it. It regulates itself to like 6 or 7 PSI, whatever it is. And it's been on there for 2.5 years. I've had no issues. It doesn't run out of fuel. It doesn't flood, any of those things. So whatever they're doing, it works. I'm not going to mess with it. So it has a hot wire to that, off the key accessory. Same with the HEI. No rocket science there. So if this thing was to die on the side of the road, I know that I've either got a bad coil or something in the distributor, or a bad fuel pump. That's really it, or something major internal. At that point, I'm screwed anyways. So I can pretty much fix this truck on the side of the road anywhere. And again, that was the whole goal. I wanted to be able to drive this thing, and if it broke down, I could get parts. Sometimes with Fords, that's a little finicky because of certain parts don't interchange from year to year. So that's kind of the breakdown of that. These headers are Hedman, however you say it, Hedman Tri-Y headers for a 67 to 69 Mustang, I believe. They're part number like 88400. They're direct boat in. This is an 05. Like I said, I didn't have to clearance anything. Let me get a flashlight here and I'll show you. I didn't have to clearance anything. I didn't have to move anything. I didn't have to do anything. They just fit. They fit fine. There's no They're not tight down in there, nothing like that. I mean, I have no issues. I can change the plugs on this truck in like 15, 20 minutes. There's no hassle. So that's that. Like I said, super easy. I had this motor in here in like 15 to 20 minutes by myself. Had a buddy just kind of guide the cherry picker, but it just set right down in here. The key to that is save yourself the hassle and the headaches of trying to make your own motor mounts. For $50 or $60, you can buy Rick's Rangers motor plates for this truck. You buy a set of 4.0 motor mounts, bolt them to the block, and then you bolt the motor mounts down from a 4.0 into the truck, and then you bolt these plates on, and then the motor literally sits right in. You've got like an inch of movement forward or back. As you can see, I've got plenty of room up here between the water pump pulley and the fans. None of that's really an issue. So headers, like I said, 88-400, I believe, Heedman, they fit perfect. No modifications. All I did after that is took it to a local exhaust shop. I've got 2.5-inch exhaust run into a set of either MagnaFlow or Bassani mufflers, and then they come straight out the side over here into 3-inch tips, and I've got them angled out like a Lightning. That was kind of the goal there, like a mini Lightning look. Not that I was trying to replicate it, but just kind of the same effect. Same way with the wheels. Some 18-inch, they used to be called Rovos. I think they're called like NVX maybe, NVX now. Kind of the same thing. So there's that. That's just kind of a quick basic rundown there. As far as transmission goes, you've got a couple options. Some people run C4s, AODEs, 4R70s. You can run lots of things. I run a Fox Body T5, cheap, easy, effective. I bought one. I think the placement's fine. I have no issues with it. Shifting wise, it's, you know, it sits right behind where the factory shifter would. It's perfectly in place for shifting. I've never had any issues. I had to reach super far. I would use a stock shifter. Factory, now let me make sure I get this right. F550 master cylinder and a 240 SX slave cylinder. Bolted to the transmission. Nothing fancy there. You can look that up online. There's many people that run that. I have plenty of travel throw. I've got a threaded rod. I can adjust it. The seats. A lot of people ask about the seats. The seats are Mercury Mariner seats. They were kind of a pain in the ass to put in. I had to trim a lot. I had to make my own brackets. They were well worth it. They're leather. They're bolstered. They sit great. They ride great. I hooked up the heated function, so both seats are heated. They both work well. The driver's side is on a slider. The passenger side is bolted solid because I didn't want anybody running the headrest through my rear window. I've been through that twice on another truck. So they're bolted solid. So you got as much room as you got. You just gotta kind of live with it. This side will go back and forth about 8 inches forward and back. Plenty of room to drive it. I use a aftermarket Pro Tack. Nothing fancy. Again, this was a budget build. It just works. A set of cheap gauges. That's how I keep an eye on everything. I've got a water, a volt, and an oil pressure gauge, and then the fuel pressure, fuel gauge works up here. The tach and the heat or the temperature and the speedometer do not work. Don't care nothing about it. I run a Power Acoustics radio. Nothing fancy there either, but it's, you know, 140 bucks or something at Walmart. I have CarPlay. I have right now I've got my little USB stick in there so I can watch movies, or the kids can watch movies. I also have I can hook my phone into it. My screen, it plays my instructions, or, you know, directions on it. And then for ignition, there's a lot of ways you can do that. I didn't want to have to mess with the PATs and all those things, so key on, and then this is what used to be a 12-volt accessory port, just like over here. Drilled it out and then mounted a push button starter on it, so you just push that to start it now. Key forward and then push button. All the interior I dyed black. It came out really well, I think. I did the headliner myself. It's, you know, some people hate it, some people love it. It just depends on who you are. Don't really care. It was cheap. It was what I had. My kids loved it. I let my, you know, this is, again, I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning, but this is my 7-year-old's truck. I built it when he was 7. We built it together. It's actually, he's 9 now, so this will be his truck. We did the Rhino lining. I had my buddy up the road, Shannon, he did my Lightning and this truck. Does phenomenal work for super cheap. We've got a factory bumper on it. I'm not a Ropan fan, never have been, hate them, think they look terrible on a truck. Got your own opinion. Again, I pop that out, throw a ball on it, and I pull my jet skis to the lake. They're 2,000 pounds. Factory bumper, no issues. I run a stock Ranger 8.8 out of a 4-wheel drive 2004, I believe. It's got 410s and a locker. Does fine. Never had any issues there. I think they're good to like 450, 500. So not worried about it. Everything on this truck was kind of designed, again, to be simple. So the way I designed this truck is the exhaust comes over in front of the transmission and then wraps around and down. So when I change something with this transmission, excuse me, Kentucky weather. When I change this transmission, I've had to pull it out once already. I have 4 bolts. I unbolt the shifter and the drive shaft. Again, the drive shaft, stock drive shaft from the 4-cylinder. I unbolt those 4 bolts, and transmission comes right out. I don't have to fight with exhaust. I don't have to do any of that stuff. So I could technically, if I had some jack stands, I could change this transmission on the side of the road in about 30 to 40 minutes. I've done it in this garage in about that time. It's not a big deal. There's about 6 bolts total to change this whole thing out. So again, simplistic, easy, cheap. Quick tip for some people, most people don't know this. You can take a Fox body input shaft and throw out burning retainer and swap it onto a 94 to 2004 V6 Mustang T5 and do it essentially the same thing. The transmission in it right now is out of a 98 V6, and it has the input shaft out of a 91 or so Fox body with that same retainer. I have no issues. So that's always an option if you want to keep that shifter forward just a little bit. It'll be, 5/8 of an inch or an inch. I don't know what it is. Something like that. It's almost an inch further back if you use the other transmission. It's not going to make a big difference, but it might interfere with the drive shaft because my drive shaft's pretty tight in there. I don't know that if I had a longer transmission, if I could have ran this drive shaft safely. But the transmission, like I said, they're cheap and easy. You get them at the junkyard and then throw your Fox body input in it, and you're good to go. The next phase for this truck, if everything goes as planned, the yellow Mustang, y'all have seen this car. It's been on my page for a while. I've had this car for 11 or 12 years now. I bought this car stock. It's went through a million different phases, but it's the same deal. I gutted it and repainted it and changed it to zinc yellow from the factory canary yellow and blacked out the engine bay because I wanted that blacked out look. I hydro dipped everything, so did all those things to make this thing look pretty and put a 351 in it. It's a mild 351, but it performs extremely well. The motor's been in there 11 years. It is a stock bottom M3, well, not stock bottom, it's stock crank 351 with forged pistons and rods. It's an 8.5 to 1 motor with old school Canfield 192 cc heads, Trick Flow R box, 80-pound injectors, E85, Vortec V3 SI, 355 gears, AODE transmission with a Baldwin US shift box. All that connects into a great cruiser, power windows, power locks, AC, cruise, you name it. Car's got it. Drive it anywhere I want. Same deal. Very, very reliable car. I'd built another motor for it because I never thought this car would run as good as it does because it is so mild and the combo so mild. But I took it to the track twice. I ran True Street. The first time I was pretty easy on the car, and after the cruise it still went 1053 at like 130. So I knew it had plenty of potential because that's the first time and only time the car had ever been to the track since I owned it. So the next time I went was this past September. Me and my dad, one of the last trips we took together before he passed, and a neighbor down the street went, and straight off the trailer, cool morning, no heat soak, let her rip, got on the stall good, on foot brake, and it went 1007 at 136. So it's knocking on 9s, which was a goal of this car from day one was to run 9s. So I know it'll run 9s the way it sits. I just have to do a little bit more tweaking. So that brings me to this part. This truck has this stock 302 with a set of heads, but I have this, and yes, it stays covered. I uncovered it for the video. Mattingly's built this also. So I bought a 94 Cobra a while back, and when I bought it a few years ago, it had a blown engine. It had a bad piston. It melted a piston. It had a Novi 2000 with a set of heads, and this is a 383 Winger. No, I'm not saying that wrong. It is a 383. It's a different stroke than like a 393. You can read about them. A lot of guys like them because they rev really fast, supposedly, and they'll carry a lot of RPM. They're a good mid combination between like a 408 and say like a 357 combo, which is pretty mild. It's not as quite as aggressive as like a 408, but there's lots of guys making 800 plus with this combo and a mild blower. So this is a 10.5 to 1. Is roughly is going to be about a 10.5 to 1 depending on the heads. It's a 40 over now, so it makes it technically a 387, I believe, is what it comes out to being. It's got a forged crank, forged pistons, and forged rods. So I don't know. It's going to be good to whatever the block is good to. You know, if the block cracks at 800 or 900, then or 1,000, that's what it's going to go to. Again, Mattingly built this, so I have full confidence in it. I don't think I'll have any problems. It's got ARP boats, and it'll have ARP everything just like the Mustang motor. But I believe that what's going to happen now is I believe I'm going to throw a set of decent heads on here in a fairly aggressive cam, try to make 450 to 500 naturally aspirated as it sets, and put it in the truck. And then at that point, the truck should run as good as it sounds, and I shouldn't really lose any drivability or reliability. Pretty much the only thing I think I'm going to have to really upgrade in the drivetrain will probably be to a little better transmission, which I may go automatic at that point. I don't know. I really love the auto in this Mustang. I know a lot of people don't, but I use that US shift box, so I have paddle shift, and I have, you know, 4 different tunes. It just makes it really nice. If you ain't ever read about them things are pretty amazing. So I may upgrade the transmission. I might stay 5-speed. I don't really know. And then I'll have to upgrade the fuel system. Obviously, I'll have to go to like a Holly Blue and do a few things there, but that'll come up here later. Truck still runs fine, drives fine. You know, it doesn't seem to be on its last leg yet, but it's probably got 140 or 50,000 miles on that motor, so I'm kind of surprised it's held out and held up as long as it has. But we're still ticking, and we'll just keep on going until it don't. I do have, I don't know where I laid it, I've got a Holley nitrous plate, so I do plan to go ahead and spray at least 100 to 150 shot on it this summer, just to see what it does, see if it wakes up a little bit. Truck feels strong, it's not fast. To give a comparison, I've run a like Challenger RT, you know, and it's driver based, but I've run let's see, 3 of those now, and I've outran all the Challenger RTs. Not saying much, I know those aren't fast. I have ran 2 Charger SRTs or Scat Packs, and I'm pretty familiar with how those run, because you know we have a 392 Charger. So the truck weighs 2980. I've had it weighed on the drag pack with a full tank of gas, weighed 2980, and just as it sits. So the power to weight ratio is there. You know, it's a pretty good power to weight ratio with 300 horsepower. But I can hang with a Scat Pack through the top of 3rd gear, from like 2nd, top of 3rd. By the time we hit 4th, they start pulling on the big end. So, you know, and that's pretty much what I figured. You know, the power to weight ratio just, it keeps it in line until they get up top, and then that transmission gearing they have, and just the overall, you know, motor, they just start pulling away. So again, I'd like to put that engine in it, and with that power to weight ratio, it should put it down in the low 11s, I would think, on motor. And then I'm not scared of nitrous. I've run nitrous on almost everything I've ever had, so I'll probably spray that too. But you know, thanks guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Appreciate y'all's time. Appreciate everybody liking and sharing and subscribing. Support. I appreciate it so much. Love you guys. Comment below. See y'all soon.